Okay, so thanks for coming. My name is Marcin Dobos. I'm Director of Technology at Neontri. I work in Neontri to create excellence when it comes to providing tech services around globe for financial sector and for e-commerce. And today I will show you some of the solutions that we created and talk a little bit about mastering GenAI and how to build GenAI Assistant for enterprise excellence. And well, all those things really came out of the idea for creating something for our company internally. So today I will show you all of important things and basically tell about what we do and why we really came into GenAI solutions in the first place. So Neontri was established in 2013 and we're born from the sector which involves a lot of data processing, a lot of things like big data, open banking, all those kind of things which enterprise sector needs to work correctly. That's why at some point we figured that we will go towards actually processing those data, and we arrive at the conclusion of using GenAI and LLM models nowadays so popular, and we would like to show you our take on the whole concept and the whole perspective. So maybe let's start with agenda. So, well, first of all, I will obviously show you our assistant, our internal solution, how it works, what we really took into account, and well, basically our grand achievement when it comes to what how we're working today. We will also talk about other possibilities. So, how can you really use a similar solution in your business and how it really doesn't need to be what we did internally, but can be also facing, for example, your end customers. We'll talk about data processing pipelines. So rather not to think only about models, but also where those old data came from that the model needs to load and needs to take care of. We will speak about retrieval augmentation generation, which is a very specific way of using LM models, which I will describe in detail. Also mention vector databases and how you can use those when it comes to creating a real solution and why we selected data stacks and not other database to perform in our assistant solution. Also, we will speak about how what we are doing is different than a lot of things that you may find nowadays from a lot of providers and how it is much more flexible. There will be also time for some for Q&A session, and I will be very nice for you guys to keep in mind all the questions at the very end so I can answer them. Okay, so let's go with the assistant. Hopefully right now you can see my screen. This is just a very simple front end for what we are using as an assistant inside our company. And well, basically, it works as a chat. So it communicates very similarly as you would do with ChatGPT, for example, right? But what it really differs, he already knows his role in company. So you can just ask like, who are you? And what I'm going to get that he's aware that he's an tree assistant. So every single thing I will do towards this kind of solution will also be aware that his main role is to help the employees of Neontri, my company, right? So well, it was really the first idea here was to create a solution for marketing department and sales. The reason being quite simple that there's a lot of insight inquiries about what are we doing, what kind of projects are you guys on, what kind of things can you work with, all these kind of things, and we would like to create a solution that can answer all those questions without us being involved too much, basically. So this is something that really solves one of our internal problems. And well, maybe you should ask something like a little bit more in detail. Let's go with what kind of projects did Neontri do for here, which is one of our clients. Well, it's obviously aware about the things that we are doing with one of our clients. The reason being he's aware of anything and everything that goes inside the company. And why I will probably describe later on in later steps, but let's go a little bit more into detail. Like, tell me about PSD to hub, right? So yeah, he's quite aware about all the things which is just part of how we are doing all these things with our clients, and we can actually leverage this knowledge inside our company. And also he's aware about some internal things, like for example, some framework that we use, even custom development frameworks that we use for our clients. We can ask him like, what's uh, a very short word. And well, he knows that MBF actually stands for Mobile Banking Framework, which is a framework that we use internally in our company. So he's quite aware about all the things that we're using and how we're engaging with the client. So he's really able to help the sales department and marketing department. So that was a main goal for us. Okay, I hope that that was sufficient for now anyway. And let's say just a little bit more about how this kind of solution and different kind of solution that our GenAI can do for your business, basically. Um, a very similar solution like this can actually help you with data enrichment, especially when it comes to banking transactions and things that have some kind of information already present, but we would like to get more information out of this very small sample. It also works quite great when it comes to create a product description in a very similar manner. So, for example, if for some reason you're having a very short description of your product in e-commerce system, or just maybe some a picture, we can create a data pipeline that will include those information, process them, and create a very nice description of the product itself, which will help you with your search queries. It's also useful when it comes to project suggestions. We created a POC of the system, which actually selects a right shoe for you for your occasion. So you can just write to it and ask, okay, so I'm having some kind of wedding, for example. It's going to be all in the evening. I'm having my fiance is having this and that, and please propose a shoe that will fit this occasion, this time for this kind of parameters that I provided to you. And it's able to really help you. So it's really doing the assistance of selecting you the products that are important for you and it can actually fulfill your needs. Of course, service regulatory assistant. This is something that we figure out at some time that there's a lot of queries in question for the enterprise sector about, how my data is being processed, for example, or what I'm actually, what the company is doing when it comes to some kind of clauses that are part of the agreement. And all those kind of things takes time for your help desk to process. And creating this kind of assistant that is aware about both information about the client and all the terms and services of your company and the services that are already part of the client account, of course, can be very beneficial. So all those kind of things can be part and can be developed in a similar manner as we develop the assistant, Neontri Assistant. It's also important to note that it really doesn't need to be any kind of chat at all. So when I think about it, we usually tend to create this kind of interface that you're typing something in, maybe besides the use case described for product description. But it's important to remember that this is not really a case. It can be anything. It can be any kind of system which is already present, some kind of queuing system like Kafka can also feed it inside the solution that we are creating. And the output of those information can also be right to pretty much any system. So don't think about it as just some kind of assistant. Anything that involves generating text, clustering some data, classification, things like this can be used in such a manner. So it really isn't restricted for assistant purposes only. Okay, data processing pipelines. So I was talking quite a lot about processing data. Maybe I will show you how we actually process the data when it comes to our solution and our assistant currently. Okay, so let's go back to the screen. And what you're seeing right now is actually this data process that I was mentioning before. Maybe let me do a quick guide intro for the whole interface, right? So currently we're having quite a lot of boxes right here. And the one which is the most important is, of course, pipelines, but I will start with the smaller ones. So we have gateways, which are basically the way that the client can integrate with the solution. We have topics, which are pretty much in this case they're just Kafka topics. So we're able to pass the data between all those steps in a smart manner, in the manner that can actually scale also. And we're having resources, which is some type of external system that is being used in our solution. And all those things are, of course, connected together in some way because they're integrated and they're using one another to actually build the whole solution together. Okay, maybe let's go a little bit into detail with the pipeline. So we have two pipelines, loader and chatbot. I will start with the loader. This is I think, the more important one, really. So in our case, we're keeping all the data that is being produced inside the company in Google Drive short drive. So our source is going to be Google Drive source. We've developed a Google Drive source, which is basically something that monitors every single change that happens on our Google workspace account drive, and every single time anything happens, like edit, creating new file, creating new folder, it reports and it gets this data through the pipeline. So this is our source. And we're filtering all the kind of files that are relevant to us. So we're filtering for PDF files, doc file, Excel file, all the kind of things that we expect the important data about our company to be there. It really doesn't need to be any structured data, really. Then we're processing the data by extracting the text. There is actually a very small library called Apache TK, which can handle a lot of formats from different data sources. So PDF, docs, pretty much even images. So we're extracting the pure text, the pure ASCII or UTF text out of those documents, and proceed to normalizing the text. Normalizing the text is an important process, quite basic, but quite important one also. So we are deleting all the extra spaces, any kind of character that we do not know what really does, can't really display. And well, we're also converting every capital letter to lowercase letter for sure, and maybe some other steps. I don't remember now, to be honest with you, but pretty much we want to be sure that the text is clean at this point. Now we're detecting the language. So since we are working with a solution that should suppose two languages, obviously English, and since we're a Polish-based company, we also support Polish. So we're filtering for those two languages. And well, if in any case we find that some kind of file we can't detect language of, or it's in different language, we simply reject it from the pipeline, just to be sure that we are not getting any kind of extra information, which is basically unimportant for our solution to work for it. Then we split those into chunks. Currently, we're running 400 chunks. So every single file, text file, every single text that occur in our pipeline will be split into chunks of 400. Then basically convert it to the proper data structure and prepare the structure for something called compute embedding, which is probably the most important part, which I will cover in a second, okay? Because, well, since it involves understanding of LLM models, it would be better for me to describe it in a second in the next chapter, basically. But this is the important part when we are actually using the real GenAI. Okay, and well, in case of a chatbot, we're doing something quite similar, really. But instead of having a source of some kind of documents from Google Drive, we are actually just relying on the query and the question inputted by the user. So basically, whatever user is going to write to us is getting here at the beginning the convert to structure job. Convert to structure job pretty much takes the text question and convert it to something that is useful for us and is having some metadata present. Then we are querying for chat history because we would like our solution to understand any kind of previous context that had in the same chat. So we are querying the database for chat history, compute embeddings, the same thing that we did with documents, a little bit about it more in a second. Look up relative documents. So we're querying the database for the documents relevant to our query, the question that the user is asking. And we are re-ranking those documents with an MMR algorithm, which is I won't really cover today. But those kind of things allow us to select a proper chunk of texts that are relevant to the question that you are asking. So we are not forcing LLM to answer a question based off every kind of information that there is in database. We are selecting just 5 chunks of data that should be enough for it to answer the question. This is the important part, right? Then we, of course, use LLM model to combine all those information together. So he's combining the chat history, those 5 documents selected, and of course the question of the user to properly answer it with the right context. And we write the history of the chats on also the question and answer for future relevance when it comes to next question, basically, and cleaning up the response before putting in to user. And well, I understand this may be a little bit complex, but what I try to showcase here basically is that it can be any kind of system and it's very flexible. You can really change it in any way that you like. And it's possible to plug it into existing systems and any kind of existing source. We were able to do it when it comes to unstructured Google Drive documents, and I'm pretty sure it's possible to do with pretty much anything nowadays. Okay, so great. Let's get a little bit more into detail about retrieval and data generation. So basically the magic job boxes that I previously described, or that I said that I'm going to cover later on, this is the moment. We will speak about, well, what's really retrieval augmentation generation and why it's so useful nowadays for creating all of those solutions. Okay, so basically we've covered most of those jobs in our pipelines, but there are like few left that we really aren't sure what they're doing. And let me quickly explain what they're really doing. So to do so, we need to pretty much describe what embeddings are. Embeddings are a very specific thing that LLM models can do for you. They're a way of how the LLM model really understands an incoming document. You can read a little bit in detail about it while reading a document published by Google. Attention is all you need, which I can really recommend. But for business perspective, is basically the understanding. This is some kind of blueprint for how LLM model understands the incoming texts. Okay, so and what we are doing here, we are saving those mental map of him understanding it into the vector database, which is here on the right, because the Astra database source. And why we're doing that? Because, well, after saving those documents, we can do the very same thing with the incoming query in the chat pipeline and compare those vectors together. So what we are basically doing here is to ask our model about, hey, what you're thinking about this document, this text. Give me a vector of thousands or hundreds of dimension, telling me exactly what you're thinking about it. What does this really mean? Save this kind of information and look for similarities when the real question came during the chat pipeline execution. Okay, so this is the way that we're selecting those magical 5 documents, which are just the most important part when it comes to being a good assistant, right? Of course, this is not all that we do, and then again, those questions need to be embedded themselves, of course, because we're going to look for similarity in the vectors, which I will talk a little bit more in the future. And what we do, we then again use our model to combine those information together. So when we have this 5 selected documents, we can actually execute those the LLM model with those documents to tell us exactly the right answer to the question provided by the user at the beginning of the pipeline. Um, Hopefully that describes the retrieval augmentation generation properly. If you have any kind of question, like go ahead, just ask me at the end. I will be able to provide a little bit more in detail how it actually works for sure in the future. Um, okay, vector databases and data similarity. This is also an important part to cover. And sure, let's go back to our diagram. And well, I've mentioned that we're saving those embeddings in a vector form in the database itself. Well, this is true. And well, I can actually show you this database. Oh, of course, I'm logged out because why not? Just give me a second. Great. Nice. Good SSO. Okay, so right now we will be seeing some data and we'll speak about the special data type called vector and why it is so amazing and so useful when it comes to this kind of retrieval generation pattern. So maybe let's start with describing the table. Neontri, sorry. Perfect. Okay, so you will see there is a special data type called vector, which is basically uh, you can think about it as a table of numbers with a fixed size. And well, it is a little bit special because data like Astra has this ability to compare those vectors and tell you what's the closest vector for the one that you're providing. So this is the way that we are looking for the best documents, these five magical documents that's supposed to help us with answering the question. And well, it's important to know that how fast the database is actually working for how big set of data is essential when it comes to running this solution on enterprise sector. So the reason we're selecting a Cassandra-based database, DataStax database, is that we know for a fact it can run in very, very, very big set of data. So we know that we can actually run those models and those solutions on big data. So think basically banking transactions, think anything that is concerning e-commerce or some kind of special kind of events that are part of the solution. So yeah, I mean this is the part which helps us really to create the answer, the proper answer. And just to show it to you, I will probably query how much data we're having right now in our solution. It may be useful. Um, String count file ID from documents. Right. So we've loaded only 4,500 documents in our current solution, which are documents, not chunk of data. There's many, many more chunk of data, obviously, but those are the things that we're working with right now. And those vectors help us to actually select the right part for the answer. Um, okay. Okay, flexibility of the solution. Yeah, so why we find it different than what you might find nowadays in many places. So all this solution is currently running on Google Cloud Kubernetes Engine, uh, which is honestly not really a case. It can be really any kind of Kubernetes engine. But from our perspective and from our experience, running it in Kubernetes engine can be quite useful when it comes to compliance and security reasons, especially if you're on the market for some solutions that need to have a right type of observability and monitoring present. So all those kind of jobs that I've showed you previously on the diagram are actually part of Kubernetes clusters, and then can be used even on premise. So you can run it on AWS. You can run it on any kind of things which are part of any kind of other Kubernetes service, also in premise. So this is the thing that basically for sure differs in for any kind of other solutions. And it's maybe also important to mention that currently we're using GPT-4 for our needs, but this is pretty much plug and play. So we can use any kind of different LLM model, like, for example, AWS, Bedrock. We can do one of Llama models, or even run some quantified models, which are part of your own environment and your own on-premise solutions. So those things can be plug and play when it comes to creating data pipelines and thinking about it as jobs of data. And this is something that really differs. And not only that, uh, creating and changing data source is something also which is quite different than the things that you may previously see. So, as I probably mentioned before, you can really probably connect to much. I think at this point, anything that has data in your existing applications, your existing infrastructure, and it should be able to extract the proper information, and you will be able to use it as something which could plug in into the existing system. So you don't need to work with some kind of APIs to provide data to the solution. It can really be something that you can use right here, right now. We also believe that since there is a very good monitoring present, observability, and you can pretty much provide your whole own image, which has like a right type of hardening. This can be easily a production version of LLM solutions nowadays when it comes to enterprise sector, which has quite a lot of regulations. So if you can select and maintain where the data is being processed, in which way and for who, when this solution can, you can think about doing a production development when it comes to this kind of Gen AI solution. So this is another thing that we're thinking about, and that we find that is completely different from anything else that previously we saw when it comes to GenAI. We also like to think that we will be able to quite soon run those LM models, which are right now part of OpenAI Azure configuration, inside on-premise configuration with the right model which are quantified. Currently, most of the quantified models are unable to run on premise, and if they do not support, for example, Polish language. But we're doing some kind of experiments already, and they're proved to be quite interesting. So at some point, we probably see the ability to completely distinguish yourself with such a solution from any kind of service provider at all, which we're aiming at. What's also important, in my opinion, is that, well, I think I should show you the logging basically. So as you can see, all those things are being logged. So we have this information present, and every kind of DevOps that you have inside your company can handle those. So this is another thing. So when we were thinking about creating a solution inside our company, we were thinking about creating also for enterprise sector. Okay. Okay, so maybe some conclusion. I'm quite sure this is going to be first of many recordings and many kind of presentation we would like you to attend. I think we'll be talking more in detail about many things that are and can be present soon when it comes to Gen AI. So be sure to stay tuned. And well, when it comes to other things like talking into detail about how the solution can change and what we can do about your cases, this will also be part of all those future webinary that we're going to do. It's essential to have this kind of clean and clean process for scalability and requirements for enterprise. So this is pretty much what I'm trying to convey during this whole presentation, is that enterprise sector really differs, and you can't really plug in any kind of solution which is on the market and hope that you will be doing just fine. We believe that you should really think about it as something that you need to create on your own terms and on your own infrastructure. It doesn't matter if it's really a cloud infrastructure on premise. So this is what we are doing right now. And well, it's also important to note that most of those components that I provide showed to you, and even created a few of those myself, are basically plug and play. So you're not really going into any kind of LLM provider locking, all this kind of things. So the moment that you will find that, for example, Vertex AI models called BART, for example, are doing better for you, you can also swap when it comes to the solution that we're developing right now. So this is also the important part. Okay, thank you for listening. And are there any questions? I think we're having some delay here, so I'm still waiting for the questions. Okay, since we're still waiting for the questions and there is a bit of delay apparently, uh, well, I think I can tell you just a little bit more about maybe I think about the selection of LM models. It seems like an important, interesting part. Oh, I think they're asking something. Uh, is this solution production ready? Uh, As I previously said, I believe it is. I mean, mostly because the way that you can monitor it and the way that observability is already there and the way that we are leveraging the already present solutions and that DevOps already knew in your company, so Kubernetes cluster, I would say that this is production ready. It's also important to note that because of this, like for example, if any of those processes fail to run, for example, they're going to get back up. They're going to be report about it. All those kind of things, which was part of enterprise IT solutions, are already present there. So I would say they're ready to production, and I would confidently go with it. And I think we should consider it in the future of running your own GenAI pipelines and thinking about it as something as data processor than just a simple solution. Are there any more questions? Oh, right. Sure. So the way that I think there are like few ways that you can improve your model over time, and I can think about four of those at least. So The way that you can first of all improve the whole thing is by pretty much engineering of the prompt, that's for sure. So when you think about it, you can just change the way that you are doing assistant prompts for this kind of model. In our case, we just informed it that it's an assistant of Neontri and you should do everything it can about helping Neontri employee. But this can be something that you can do to change the way it actually works. And this is the most basic thing that you can do and the cheapest. You can think about probably another thing that you can do. You can think about fine-tuning the model. For example, OpenAI has already a tool for fine-tuning the model, and model fine-tuning can be very beneficial when it comes to if you have a very specific case to cover, and those models can also be used in this kind of solution. And well, it pretty much works like that. You can tell the model when he's doing good and when he's doing wrong, and you can tweak some of the parameters of the model, like temperature. So this is also something that can be quite useful. And well, another thing that you can do for sure is to maybe go with some kind of foundation model yourself and build upon it, but this is something that is quite complex at this point. You can also swap the model for another model that you find is better for your case. This is quite possible that this require a little bit of more of work for sure. And the last and probably impossible for most of the people around is to create your own machine learning model from scratch. But if you're not Google and you don't really have a seasoned team of data scientists, you really shouldn't tackle this one at all. So I would say try to think about those tuning and this prompt engineering first for sure. But this is a great question. Okay, are there any questions? Anything else I can ask? You can ask. Okay, how long would it take to implement it from scratch with a ready language model? Well, it depends on your data source for sure. So, as you probably are already aware, some of those components are ready to be used, but another are need to be created from scratch. And depending on what kind of data source you're having and what kind of problem you're trying to solve, it will vary for sure. And from my perspective, I would say to make it production ready with all the tests, all the things that are necessary, it will probably take like a few months. I'm thinking 2 3 months time to have it on production. And this, of course, includes testing and having it seasoned and ready for your clients. But honestly, it really depends on the customization and the sources that you're going to need. And well, it's very hard to estimate by itself at this point for sure.